or those requisitions were not honored by the accounting officer, who is our accounting officer, that is the State House Comptroller. A complete requisition forms, just for your note, contains signatures and approval notes from heads of department. It is therefore the position of the Office of the Third Retired President that the government of the day has not undertaken nor facilitated any repairs, maintenance of any vehicles under this office, neither have they fueled any cars under this office. As I finalize on the issue raised in the matter by the government spokesperson, the office still awaits the confirmation and communication on why they blatantly refuse to renew contracts of 2 professional staff members, the administrator, Mr. George Kariuki, and Mrs. Kanze Dena Mararo, who is the Director Communication. There is also the issue of unceremonious withdrawal and intimidation of staff via phone calls at midnight. We have provided a list of the complete staff serving in the office of the retired third president, and would also like to clarify that the list that Mr. Mwaura presented in his statement had the wrong tally. Those members of staff that were there were 32 and not 33, when the Act provides for 34 members of staff. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to present the official position of the Office of the Third Retired President of the Republic of Kenya. On the issue of the office, before retirement and during his retirement, the former President Kenyatta has been sought to undertake various international roles, especially within the region, in his capacity as a former head of state. And among them was his appointment as a peace facilitator by the East African Community Heads of State during the 22nd Ordinary Meeting of East Africa Heads of State Summit that was held on the 22nd of July 2022 in Tanzania, Arusha. These engagements necessitated that the need to identify and establish a suitable office for the former president to enable him carry out these roles and provide an operational base for various cadre of staff. Now, with no response from State House and a lack of commitment to finalize on the issue of the office space, His Excellency, the former president, identified a suitable office space, as you can see where we are, and went ahead to fully furnish and equip it from his pocket. A formal letter was written to State House requesting valuation of the office that was identified by the former President Kenyatta as suitable for him to carry out his duties. However, the office did not receive a response on the issue, and instead, the communication that the office received was via message, text message, by the then in charge, Mr. John Makumi. And in his statement, he indicated the estimates of the property in question. Where we are, and that is the office that was selected by the former president. In your communication pack or in your press kit, you will find the communication that alludes to this statement. To date, this office runs on the former president's goodwill as it waits upon action from State House. On the issue of vehicles, as indicated earlier, the former president is using vehicles given to him on a transitional basis. The office would like this to go on record, that after transition, a conversation on the purchase of vehicles as required by the Act commenced between the two offices. That conversation I have made available for you also on the kit, and it notes that the identification of vehicles was done, down to the color of the vehicle, and then the conversation froze. To date, no discussions have been revived. We don't know if the cars were purchased or not. On international trips, since retirement, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta has undertaken several official trips related to the roles and duties he has engaged in, and only 2 such trips have been honored. The trip to Ethiopia on matters concerning the peace process led by the African Union, and the one to Burundi that was the 11th summit of the heads of state and government of the East African Community on the issues pertaining to the peace process in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The office did submit other requests for facilitation of trips, but received no response. That too you'll find in your press pack. Now the budget is the 4th issue. Now this is actually the core issue that the office seeks to have addressed: budget allocation. In the year 2022-2023, financial year 2022-2023, Parliament allocated this office 655 million shillings. To date, the office can only confirm absorption of roughly 28 million shillings. spread across payment of allowances for domestic travel, as well as facilitation of the 2 trips that I mentioned earlier that were honored. That is approximately 4.4% of the total budget for that particular year. And this does not include the payment of salaries and medical insurance. The financial year 2023-2024 that ends in a few weeks, the budget allocation for this office was 503 million shillings. The year is ending without the office having any access to this allocation. The total amount for the 2 years that we have not had access to this approximately 1 billion Kenya shillings. We can confirm that salaries have been paid, as well as medical insurance, but we cannot allude to how much it is. Now, in the coming year, which is 2024-2025, the budget allocation is 579 million shillings. Well, the office waits with bated breath to see if this will be honored. You see, the quagmire that this office is in is that the office cannot substantiate what has been used and where the monies have been used, since several requests and attempts to get budget returns from the accounting officer, who is the State House Comptroller, have fallen on deaf ears. We would also like to distance ourselves from budget estimates tabled in Parliament. Our position is that we had no input on the budget estimates that informed the allocation of 450 million shillings that Treasury projects to allocate the office of the 3rd retired president in the coming year of 2025-2026, which is 475 million shillings for the year 2026-2027, as was reported by the Star newspaper of the Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. You see, after budget estimates are approved by Parliament, the monies are disbursed to the accounting officers through Treasury. It is at this point that our department or office is able to access the budget allocation through the accounting officer as per their requirements. And I just want to state that our accounting officer in this case is our State House Comptroller. The total cost of the plan is then submitted to Parliament as budget estimates. And once approved, the budget allocation will be under care of the accounting officer, who then is expected to allocate the monies to the department office. This process has not happened in our case. The lack of access to our rightful budget allocation has forced the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, to run the office from his pocket, paying for all the bills the office incurs. Communication. The office notes with concern the choice of communication by State House to this office. State House chooses a verbal form of communication on official issues or chooses not to respond to correspondence by this office. This includes the requisition for fuel maintenance, office operations and facilitation, pending renewal of contracts and budget returns. We all know the importance of written communication in any office to maintain transparency and order. In the press kit that we have availed to you, you will see internal communication within the office to enable us account for actions taken following verbal non-committal communication from State House. We have also seen the continuous onslaught of the office on local dailies, as well as leaking of misleading documents by State House, presenting the office of the 3rd retired president in bad light to the public. It has never been the intention of this office to engage with State House via the public gallery on matters that should be handled between the two offices. The position of the office of the 3rd retired president is the respect of institutions, and as such has remained silent for the last 2 years, hoping for a formal engagement with State House. However, the continued address of the issue in the public domain has informed the move by this office to give a formal response on the real state of affairs. We call upon the relevant institutions led by Parliament, who are mandated to uphold the rule of law and defend the Constitution, the Auditor General, who is tasked to hold the government accountable in its expenditure, as well as the Controller of Budget, to look into the issues that we have raised. As an office, we are willing and ready to engage. However, it is our observation that there's a lack of commitment and reluctance by the government in fulfilling the Presidential Benefits Act in totality. Now, there was an issue that was raised in the statement about Mama Ngina Kenyatta. So, as pertains the Act, we all know that Her Excellency Mama Ngina Kenyatta, in her capacity as the former First Lady and surviving spouse of the late President Jomo Kenyatta is entitled to benefits amounting to 50% of her husband's pension. The 3 Range Rovers that Her Excellency Mama Ngina Kenyatta has in her possession were allocated to her by the late President Daniel Arap Moi and the late President Mwai Kibaki during their respective tenures, and replaced accordingly after every 3 years, that is. Now, clearly, the government spokesperson said that they gave her the cars, but clearly the government of the day has not provided her with any vehicles. In fact, we would like to clarify that on the 18th of July 2023, at 7 p.m., all her drivers and security detail allocated to her were withdrawn from their residences via phone. The claims in the media that personnel were reinstated is false. To cap it all, fuel cards for her vehicles were also blocked since March 2023 to date, and vehicle maintenance denied. She fuels and maintains these government vehicles, one of which has been unserviceable for approximately over 1 year. We do note that there are other beneficiaries of the Presidential Retired Benefits Act, which include the former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, the first retired Vice President, Honorable Mudi Awori, and the second retired Vice President, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. We also know that the current Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, was also a beneficiary of this office before his new role in the current government. While the picture painted by Mr. Mwaura of the government's commitment to support the office of the retired president in accordance to the law is the ideal situation, it saddens this office to inform the public that unfortunately that picture does not exist. And our worry as an office is a precedence that is being set by the government of the day. Their decision to blatantly ignore execution of the Presidential Act No. 11 of 2023 seems to open up a Pandora's box that will leave a retired head of state at the mercy of the government of the day. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat everywhere, whatever affects one directly or indirectly. So help us God. And we would like to clarify that this is not what we would want to happen. This is not how we would want to engage, because we respect the rule of law. However, any matters arising, we do acknowledge that there are officers concerned, and we do hope that they will be able to pick it up and rest the issue. I conclude my statement, and now I'll take in questions. Yes, sir. Yes, Justice.
Is it true that the office of the fourth president of Kenya suggested a request for valuation of this property?
That is not true. You will see in your press pack that there's a letter that was written to State House asking for the valuation of this office, and there has been no response.
And is it also true that the office of the fourth president wants the government to pay rent for its private property?
I think what we need to understand here is that the suitable choice of office, and I've explained to you what informed him to be able to use this office. And actually, if I may just add to that, is that the offices that are being used currently had to be taken over, because what I've explained is that there were duties that needed to be taken over immediately. And despite our being able to reach out to the office of State House to be able to pay, or rather to be able to settle our office, has gone to deaf ears. The offices that we use are currently on that side where you've just, on the other side where you're from. Those used to be actually servant quarters that were converted urgently so that the office can be able to be in use.
And finally, you say that your name, President,
yes. 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 Yes.
So how are you earning your salary?
That, unfortunately, we have not earned a salary for the last 2 years.
Question.
Yes.
My name is Ken.
Yes, Ken.
Just wanted to know, in terms of the money the fourth president has spent from his own pocket, how
yes.
much is it? Would you be able to quantify? How much is it now? And the issue of you're not earning a salary.
Yes.
So who's sustaining? I mean, you've got bills to pay. Who's paying for that?
Let's talk about savings. That's all that I can say about it. So just talk about savings. And I'm not able to actually quantify on how much it is that the president has been able to spend, because that includes fueling, it includes the foods that we're eating as a staff, travel bills, all those things, electricity. So I'm not yet able to compound in totality how much that is, but it's a rough amount. I don't, Madam Wahu is our administrator, our personnel officer. Maybe she can be able to answer that question.
Good afternoon, everyone. We do not have an exact figure of... currently, we do not have an exact figure of exactly how much that he has spent, but that totals to the transport bills, every travel that he makes, catering bills as well, and any other running, administration, operational running of the office. But we don't have the exact figure at the moment.
But you require a fund if things go well.
Yeah.
We have the documents. We don't have the exact, the right figure, but we have all the documentation with us.
Yes. Yeah.
I have two questions. Number one, do you feel that State House is frustrating this office deliberately? And number two, you have talked about amounts of money that you're supposed to have received from 2023 up until now.
Yeah.
About 1 billion.
1 billion shillings.
So from as far as you know, is that money released from National Treasury and it goes back somewhere, or is it not released at all?
Okay. From the understanding that I have, and which you can go back and clarify, is that once Parliament allocates the money, I think I've also read it in my statement, the money goes to the accounting officer. For this office, the accounting officer is the controller of State House. So what happens is that once the money comes, we make a request for whatever it is we'll need, whether it's fueling, travel, and all that. So that money is supposed to be released to us by the accounting officer. That is one. On your second question, it is difficult to assess and understand why the actions that have been taken by State House have been taken, but we just notice that there's a reluctance, yes, towards aiding us. Yeah. Any other question? Yes. Yes, Sydney.
How far when it comes to peacekeeping or DRC, was heavily involved in that process? And secondly, I will speak to the timing of this pressure and the confidential, whatever is happening in the country right now. The spokesman did speak some time back. So this timing is speaking to whatever is happening in the country politically.
Okay, to your first question, I think the pressure today was about the office and the status. So on peacekeeping, we will address that much later. In terms of the timing, you did realize that he did the presser, I think, last week on Friday. It was not a long time ago. He did the presser last week on Friday. Last week, but one on Friday, I think. Last week, but one on Friday. What we needed to do and why we took time was we wanted to ensure that what we are bringing before you is the true position and with evidence. So that we are not just alluding to a statement, but we want you to have the evidence so that you may be able to understand the correct position of this office and what we stand for and what we believe in and what is true, which is want to make it public. And the reason why we've been able to respond is because they formally responded through the government spokesperson, and we felt that that was now the opportunity for us, as the Office of the Third Retired President, to also make our formal response so that people get to understand that this is where we are at. So it has nothing to do with any political indication in the country right now. Yeah.
Just one last one from me. The property where we are
Yes.
standing right now,
Yes.
where everyone says your house as the office of former president, actually does belong to the family of the president.
Yes.
At this point, you're asking the government to rent out, to sort of rent out property that belongs to you and that belongs to the from where you say you think that is morally correct.
Okay, there is something that I would want you to follow up. Maybe you can check in the public. There was a conversation that happened during His Excellency's tenure concerning also the other beneficiaries of the Office of the Retired President. And there is actually a conversation that happened between State House and the AG's office. I'm just not able to have those documents right now, but it alluded to the fact that being able to rent an office that belongs or is related to the family was not a conflict in interest issue. That issue was raised with one of the former retired or one of the beneficiaries. I'm just not able to name who it is right now, but it was concluded by the AG then that is not a conflict of interest, and that's why the former president made the decision to have the offices here. Yes. Yes. Yes.
My question is, the reason why the settlement is actually structured on the office of the retired president
Yes.
is because it has the anchor within the law, and that is the
Benefits Act. Yes.
Don't you think there are terms and conditions that come to these benefits that perhaps the government feels have been flouted or are not being adhered to, especially touching on politics, that could bring this complexity and give them a good gray area not to do what you're asking them to do?
I know that one of the things that they talk about is his involvement in politics. And I think the correct position is that if you remember very clearly, immediately after inauguration, there was an NDC that was held by the Jubilee Party. And the process of that, the purpose of that NDC was to begin a process for him to be able to hand over chairmanship. But as we know, things went as they went, and the matter is currently in court. So, inevitably, he remains the chairman of Jubilee. Inevitably, because he's one of the Jubilee is one of the key parties of Azimio, he still remains in Jubilee. However, I think we can note anywhere that he has been inactive in terms of political activity. So I don't think that that should be a basis or a TOR that should necessitate the kind of treatment that the office of the retired third president is receiving.
And finally, the level of the former president and the level of the current president, the difference is former and current.
Yes.
Has there been attempts directly by the former president to speak to the current president with a view of certain administrative issues, or it's exclusively left to the office of the administrator?
I think there is nothing that has necessitated there to be a conversation, because everything it's a rule of law. It's how things need to happen. It's the operations that would require for them to have a conversation. Yes.
I just want to know how desperate is the institution? How desperate are you? Because 2 years ago, the salary...
Well, we thank God for his mercies. That's not where we are at right now. But actually, it's not fair. Let's just say that it's not fair for us to have waited for 2 years and we still don't have an idea when that's going to end. Naam.
Hivi msimamo wa ofisi ya rais wa nne wa taifa la Kenya gani? Hivi huenda tukamwona labda katika Nuru Foi au itakuwepo na kama hayo. Hilo la kwanza. Kisha la pili, nitaomba utupe muhtasari katika lugha ya Kiswahili wapo utakubali mwishoni mwa kipindi hiki cha maswali na majibu cha shule.
Haya. Kuhusiana na swala hilo la siasa, nadhani ameshaweka wazi na umeona kwamba katika matendo yake kwamba hajajihusisha vyovyote vile na siasa. Watu kumtaja, wangependa kumtaja, kuna mapendekezo, na ni mapendekezo tu yako humu ambayo hayana uhakika wowote. Kwa hivyo sidhani kama itakuwa ni sawa kuweza kumuunganisha na masuala haya, manake yeye mwenyewe hajasimama akaweza kuyataja kama mambo ambayo yanahusika nayo. Wamekuwa wanapigiwa simu usiku na wanaambiwa waende katika stesheni tofauti kuliko ile ambao wameletwa hapa. Yaani wanapigwa transfer kupitia simu. Wapo. Lakini kwa sababu pia wao ni wa maafisa wa serikali, tungependa kuwalinda. Yes, Moshoki.
The former CJ, Justice Maraga, complained of the same thing the former president is it fair to say this is the first time that is happening? Yet that happened in Ethiopia?
Sorry.
The former CJ,
Yes.
Maraga,
Yes.
he complained of the same the former president.
But you see, the Chief Justice is not part of the Retired President's Benefit Act. He's a public servant. His matters are handled by judiciary. Right?
He was complaining of not getting what he deserved.
Yes.
The former president.
But that's what I'm saying. Their benefits are under judiciary, not the Presidential Benefits Act. Any other question? Haya, kwa muktasari basi, ningependa kusema kwa muktasari sasa. Ni kwamba kama ofisi ya rais mstaafu wa 3, Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, ni kwamba tumeweza kueleza ya kwamba kufikia sasa tumeona madai kwenye baadhi ya vyombo vya habari vikielekeza ya kwamba ofisi ya rais imeweza kupewa msaada ama imeweza kufanyiwa mambo yote ambayo yanahitajika kufanyiwa kulingana na sheria. Lakini ukweli ni kwamba swala hilo halijaweza kushughulikiwa, manake kama unavyoona ikiwa ni katika mgao wa bajeti, ofisi hii haijaweza kupata mgao huo kupitia katika mwaka wa 2022, 2023, mwaka 2024, mwaka 2023-24, ambapo katika mwaka huo wa kwanza mgao ulikuwa ni shilingi 1655, na kwa sasa tunaweza kusema kwamba kuna takriban asilimia 30, milioni 30 ambayo tumeweza kutumia. Na tunasema takriban kwa sababu we've not yet gotten the budget returns. Hatujapata mwelekeo huo ili kuweza kujua kama pesa hizo zimeweza kutumika na zimeweza kutumika vipi. Mnamo mwaka wa pili pia tumepata mgao wa bajeti wa 1503, na kufikia sasa hatujaona hata shilingi moja. Tunajua tu kwamba mishahara imelipwa, hatujui ni kiasi gani, bado hatujaweza kupata hizo budget returns. Na katika juhudi zetu zote za kuweza kuwasiliana na ofisi ya State House ili kuweza kujua na kuelewa hali ni ipi na kwa nini mambo yanaendelea vile yalivyo, hatujaweza kupata mwelekeo wowote. Maana kile waraka tunaoandika hatupati majibu, na majibu yanapokuja yanakuja na simu na huelewi ni ipi unachukua na ipi uchukui. Maana hupati simu moja, unapata simu zaidi ya moja ikiwa na mielekeo tofauti. Kuna lile swala la magari ambalo lilikuwa limezungumziwa. Nimeweza kuhakikisha ya kwamba magari alionayo rais mstaafu kwa hivi sasa ni magari aliyotoka nayo Kasarani baada ya kuweza kupatiana wadhifa wa taifa la nchi, na ilikuwa ni maelewano kwamba aweze kuchukua magari haya kwa safari ya mpito ili State House ama Ikulu iweze sasa kuanza mikakati ya kuweza kumpa magari ambayo ameweza kupewa kulingana na sheria. Kwa hivyo litushangaza kuona ya kwamba wanasema wametupa magari, ilhali magari waliotupa sio magari ambayo yameweza kuelekezwa katika sheria. Na pia tungeweza kusema ya kwamba kulingana na ofisi hajapewa ofisi bado. Manake msemaji wa serikali alisema kwamba alikuwa amepewa ofisi yake ambayo alikuwa ameichagua yeye na ikaweza pia kupewa vifaa. Hiyo nayo nimesema sio kweli. Tungali bado tunasubiri kuona kwamba tunaweza kuwasiliana na Ikulu kuhusiana na swala hilo. Na pia katika swala zima la baadhi ya wafanyakazi ambao wanafanya kazi, tumewapa orodha hiyo kamili. Walisema watu ni 33 lakini watu ni 32, wakiwa wamesalia watu wawili ambaye ni bwana George Karioki na mimi Bi Kanzedena. Karibu nijiite Bi bwana Kanzedena. Na zaidi ya yote ni kusema ya kwamba sisi kama ofisi hatujapenda kweli kuweza kuzungumza masuala haya kwenye mhadhara. Tumejaribu sana kadri ya uwezo wetu kuweza kuwasiliana na ofisi hii kupitia nyaraka na hata kujaribu kutafuta nafasi ya kuweza kuzungumza, lakini juhudi zetu zote zimegonga mwamba. Na kwa sababu tuliona ya kwamba wameweza kuzungumzia swala hili kupitia msemaji wa serikali, ndiposa tukaona ni vyema nasi pia tukaweza kusema ni kipi ambacho ni cha haki na ni kipi ambacho ni kweli. Na tumeweza pia kuwapa baadhi ya nyaraka ambazo tumeweza kuandika na masuala mbalimbali ambayo yameweza kugusiwa na msemaji wa serikali, kueleza ya kwamba hivi ndivyo hali halisi ilivyo. Na hatungependa pia kuendelea kuzungumzia masuala haya sana, manake zipo ofisi ambazo zimewekewa zina juhudi ama zina kazi yao kuu ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba masuala kama haya yanaweza kushughulikiwa. Ingekuwa ni pendekezo letu sisi kama ofisi kwamba ofisi hizo zingeweza kushughulika na masuala yote yangeweza kupelekwa kwao ili kuweza kuangalia ni kipi kile ambacho kinazuia uwajibikaji wa serikali kwa ofisi ya rais mstaafu, Rais Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
A live update there from Kanzedena Mararo, the communications officer in the office of retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. And they are addressing the issue of funding and government support for the office of the retired president. The official position of the office of the retired president is that the government seems to show a lack of commitment and lack of communication in addressing issues such as office space and benefits referred to President Uhuru Kenyatta under the Presidential Benefits Act. Among them, an office space for the former president. And they said the former president currently had to source and pay for his own office, as well as operations of that office. They are now calling out to relevant institutions, including Parliament, to hold the government accountable with regard to the Presidential Benefits Act due to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. We'll be bringing you more details on that in our subsequent bulletins. Many thanks for watching this afternoon. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Good afternoon.